We carry numerous kinds of bedding. This right here, for example, is green New Zealand sphagnum moss. This is a 4-quart bag. This is adequate for a 10-gallon or small 20-gallon cage where you don't need to add a lot of moss to it. This is Fanny chip bedding. This is the 8-quart bag. This is suitable for a 15-gallon or 20-gallon, all the way up to a 36-inch by 12 by 12-inch cage. This size bag will fill up it up about half an inch or so. Here's the 4-quart bags of Fanny chip. Out of all the animals that you can keep on Fanny chip bedding, bearded dragons are one of the most commonly kept pets. Fanny chips work really, really well for bearded dragons. One, because it's easy to clean. As you can see, poop stands right out against it. Because of the smaller particles, it's easy to spot clean. It also is much less expensive than sand, which means that you have to spend about 1/3 to 1/4 of what you would to fill up a similar sized cage with sand. Impaction is not a risk with the Fanny chips. It is actually a small enough bedding, particle bedding, that they can either eat it or just spit it out. They can also just poop it right through their system. It's, again, the same reasons that it's good for bearded dragons make it great for leopard geckos. It's easy to clean, inexpensive, keeps them dry without keeping them too dry. And again, it's easy for them to pass it out and poop it if they do end up eating it. We've never had an issue with keeping leopard geckos or bearded dragons on Fanny chips, and we've been doing it for the past 15 years. As long as you're keeping your animals warm with an adequate place to get warm and digest their food, they can poop the Fanny chips out no problem. We also carry our own kind of desert snow. This stuff is great for keeping colubrids on, North American colubrids, such as king snakes, corn snakes, those kinds of critters. And then here's a 16-quart bag of the desert snow. Now these bigger bags here are perfect for 36 by 16-inch cages, 48-inch cages, 2-foot by 2-foot square cages, basically anything over a 30-gallon tank. This is going to provide you with either just the right amount of bedding or more than enough. So as you can see, you can keep the colubrids on the desert snow. This is a black and white banded California king snake on the desert snow type of bedding. So you can see he's shoved some of it off to the side. One of the neat things about the desert snow style bedding is that it displays the colors of darker species of snakes very well. So you can clearly see your snake outlined against the bedding. In addition, we also carry Orchid Bark. This substrate often has a lot more water to it, or at least a lot more moisture. This is good for more tropical species. This again is a 4-quart bag, and if you look, some of these other bags already, as you can see, have condensation in them, which shows you just how moist it can get in there. For any animal you want to monitor the humidity for, you would want to use Orchid Bark, such as what we're doing for these small Chinese water dragons. Orchid Bark does hold moisture when needed, and it does let it dry out quite easily, making it easy to monitor humidity and keep it up for animals that need it pretty high, and keep it a mid-range for animals that don't need it quite as high. As you can see, these water dragons are looking beautiful, and one of the reasons for that is simply because the Orchid Bark we use in the cage absorbs moisture and then lets it evaporate throughout the day, increasing humidity. We also carry shredded aspen. And this is an 8-quart bag of shredded aspen. This is great for colubrids if you don't want to use desert snow. This kind of shredded aspen helps to hold the shape of the burrows for a burrowing species. I like to use it for animals, again, for colubrids, North American colubrids, any kind of burrowing species. I also use it at home for my blue-tongued skinks. It works really well. And that's the aspen. What you can also do with the Fanny chips and Orchid Bark is mix the two beddings. For an animal like a corn snake, which doesn't need humidity too high or too low, the mix of the two beddings creates a nice happy medium that is perfect for this kind of a North American species. If you want a more natural looking kind of a substrate, this does look a lot more, well, depending on who you ask, this does look more natural than just keeping them on a plain white bedding or just bark or just Fanny chips. This kind of a mixed substrate just plain looks a little bit more interesting to some people,